Hello everybody, my name is Tony, and welcome to the third video of the Mega Man tutorial series, where together we're going to build a Mega Man style game in Unity. In our last video, we set up the animations and coded the movement and to use those animations. So we were able to jump, shoot, stand idle, and run around. And at the end, we had a shoot pose, but we didn't have any bullets yet. In this video, we're going to expand upon that and we're going to do those bullets. So we're going to make Mega Man actually shoot bullets that will collide with targets, and we're going to check for collision detection so that we can apply damage. So this is the final product right now for when you get to the end of this video. So right now I can shoot, bullets respond, I can jump and shoot, I can run and shoot, I can run and shoot opposite direction. And what I have here is I have 5 placeholder enemies right now. And I can run into them and get collide and show our hit animation. And do it from the other side. And you'll notice also that we have a health bar in the top left. And it applies that you have damage. And then we're going to shoot. And we can kill these enemies and make them disappear. Now what we're going to do real quick though is we're going to change the contact damage on those penguins to 5 so that we're going to see what happens when we hit them a few times. They take off more than just 1 health unit, and our player is gone. So that is the end product, and let's get started. So at the end of the last video, I wanted you to get the hit animation started, basically get the ball rolling. So I wanted you to create a single frame animation using the one graphic from the sprite sheet that we've been using to create the animations. And if we go to that, I wanted you to use this image right here, the one underneath the first one. So we're going to do that right now to just get this going. So we're going to click on it and we're going to rename it to player hit and then apply that. Yes. We're going to close. Then we're going to create the animation. So we're going to go into our animations folder and we're going to create the new animation. So create animation. We're going to call it player hit. And once we do that, we're going to go into the animator here by double clicking on the animator, and I already added it. Actually, that shouldn't be there. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the project, highlight it, right click, and from selected clip to put it in there. And going back over the project, now this animation, I don't know if yours is going to have loop time set, but this animation is just like, if there's no looping to it, not like the running where he's constantly going. This is just a single play only. So if your loop time is checked, uncheck it. So just go to the animations, select the one we created, player hit, and uncheck loop time if yours is set. So then we're going to select our player over in the scene, and we're going to select on the player hit, and right now we have nothing. So we're going to move this over to here for right now. Bring this in so we can see our guy here. And we're going to go to the graphics folder, expand our player, and look for player hit, which is right there, and we're going to drag that in. So we hit preview, there's our hit. So that's the solution to the end of the first video. So we're going to save those changes, and we're going to move on to the next part. So to be able to shoot bullets, let's go to our chute here and preview it. Before we can actually shoot bullets, we need to know where those bullets are going to basically originate from. So to do that, we're going to add a new child game object onto our player, which is basically going to be a transform. We're just going to use it for the transform to know where the origin of the bullets that are going to be coming from. So basically at the end of his barrel here. So we're going to right click on our player, create an empty, and we're going to call it bullet chute pause, bullet chute position, and 000. So that's fine. That's what we want. So right now you can't see it in the scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a little gizmo. So click on this little drop down arrow here, and you can pick any one you want. I'm going to pick the yellow one, and it's going to put this yellow circle here. And this is a representation of the location of our chute position. Now, it's kind of big. You might want to change that. So what you can do is just zoom in here, get over to the side, actually bring it over there. Because when you expand this gizmo menu here, you're going to have this dragger, this slide bar here on 3D icons where you can change the size of it. And it also changes the camera and the music box in the background too. It's going to change the size of all the gizmos. So we're going to shrink this down to about yay size. So now if we go in there, now it's nice and small. So now we're going to basically put this into our shooting animations so that it knows where the bullets are going to fire from, what position. So let's start with, the one we're on now, is shoot. So click on there. You're going to hit record. Select the shoot position to make sure that you're on the move tool here. And you're going to drag this up to where the barrel is. And then you're going to zoom in. And we're going to put this right at the corner there. So 0.145, 0.13. That's good. So then we're going to stop recording. And then we're going to move on to the jump chute. So right now, if you play this, it's down here, but we're going to change that. So we're going to hit record, select the shoot position, and we're going to drag that up there, same as we did before. And we're going to put it about there, and we're going to clean up the values. So 0.135 and 0.2. And we'll stop recording. So now our jump chute is done. So then we're going to go to the run chute. Now, run chute has 3 animations, so we're going to have to move it on all 3 of them because it's not in the same spot on each animation frame. So we're going to go to preview, record, make sure we're on the first one, select the bullet chute position, and we're going to move that up to here. And we're going to put it right there. So it should be 1.135, 0.12. Then we're going to move on to the next frame. Now you can see here the barrel is a little bit higher, so we're going to move that up to where that part is. That should be 0.12 and 0.14. Then we're going to move to the last frame, and you can see now it's down over there. And we're going to drop that down to there. That should be 0.14 and 0.12. Now we're going to stop recording. So now let's just move this up a little, shrink him down. So if we go back to here, you see boom, on each frame origin will move with the animation. And if we go to the Jump Chute and preview it, you see there it is. So if we jump and we hit shoot, our bullet's going to originate from this position here when it fires. And plain old shoot, preview that, our bullet's going to fire from there. So now our animations have been updated with the origin where we're going to shoot. So now we're going to actually work on making the bullet. So to do that, we're going to go over to our graphics folder. We can collapse that up. Let's move this over. We're going to import a new asset. So a new graphic, which is our bullet. So we're going to right click in that empty and we're going to import the bullet. Let me give it a sec. Okay, so there's our bullet. So with this, point no filter, no compression, apply it. And with this, we're going to drag it into the scene. So it creates a game object. And we're going to change it to bullet. I'm just going to put it at 0, 0, 0. So it's going to be, I'll just move it over here for right now. We'll zero it out at the end. So right now you can see, we can't see it. There is an image, but we're going to change the order and the layer order, so it's 5. Now where player and enemies are on layer 10, so they're like up in the front, the closest, we're going to put the bullet in the middle, behind, so it's above the background, but behind the player and the enemies. So we're going to use 5. We're going to have to add a couple more components to this. We're going to add a circle collider. So we've been using box colliders, but this is a circle, so we're going to use a circle collider. There's also a polygon. We're going to use a circle collider on this. And we're going to change the size of the radius. And I found that 0.35 fits nicely. Then we're going to add a rigid body so that we can apply physics to our bullet. So we're going to lock the Y and the Z on our bullet. And going to change the collision detection to continuous, never sleeps, and our circle collider is a trigger. So it's going to not let things like bump into each other. As soon as it collides with another object, it's going to basically fire an event that it collided, and then we're going to use code to handle that. So we don't want the bullet to push things around. We just want it to fire, touch something, and then it let us know when it touched something so we can react to it. So now that our bullet is done with that aspect, we're going to add a new script. So we're going to go to our scripts folder, right-click, create a new C# script, and we're going to call it bullet script. And with the bullet script, come on. We're going to drag the bullet script onto our bullet. And we're going to open up Visual Studio. Okay. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create some variables. So we're going to create a rigid body so we can get a handle on our rigid body. And we're going to get a handle to our sprite renderer. So in the last video, when our player goes left and right, we actually flip the transform. So, but this time I'm going to show you a different way. What we're going to do is we're actually just going to flip the sprite and not touch the transform. So just so you see how there's another way of doing that. And we're going to add a float called destroy time, a public int called damage, and we're going to initialize it to 1, and a few serialized fields. First one's going to be a float. It's going to be the speed of our bullet. And the next one is going to be a vector 2, which is going to be the direction of our bullet. And the last one is going to be another float, which is going to be the delay for how long our bullet will live for. So destroy time is internal. This is basically going to be a countdown. If once we fire our bullets, we're going to create copies of them. And these copies are going to live in the scene for as long as we need them to. Well, we don't want them to live forever. If they go outside the scene, obviously we don't see them anymore, or outside the camera range, we don't see them anymore. So we're going to want to basically terminate them after so long. Otherwise, if they collide with something before this time delay expires, then we're going to remove them. So this is what the delay is for. So this is in case they don't collide with anything. We don't want them to live or stick around forever. So then we're going to change start to awake, and we're going to get a grip on the rigid body and the sprite renderer. Use get component, rigid body 2D, and then our sprite. We're going to get component on that, and that's going to be the sprite renderer. Okay. Next, we're going to create 4 functions. These are going to be public functions. So let's go past our update. So our first one is going to be so we can set our bullet speed. And this bullet speed is equal to speed. Next public function is going to be set the bullet's direction. And that's going to be a vector, vector 2. And the next one is going to be being able to set the damage value. How much damage will our bullet cause to what it collides with, in our case, enemies. So bullet, oops, not bullet damage, it's called damage. And our last one is going to be not damage, destroy delay. Okay, so now we have these 4 functions. Let's save that. These are public, so they're accessible outside. So when we spawn our bullets from our player, we're going to initialize the speed, the direction, how fast the bullet's going to go, the speed, the direction the bullet's going to go, how much damage the bullet can cause, and how long the bullet can live for. We'll have default values, but these are in case we ever want to override them. Say you get a power-up and your cannon can fire, more than just one damage unit. So this is what you would need that for. And next, we're going to actually have it where we can shoot the bullets. So we're going to create a shoot function. And the shoot function, this is where we're using the sprite. So we're going to use this property called flipX. So it flips the sprite. The reason we're doing that, because if we go back over here, you see this little highlight, pixel highlight here. If it's going right, we want it to face the right. Otherwise, we want it to face left. Now, if your bullet was a solid color, you don't really need to do this flip, but it's good to learn in case you do want to do that. So flip X, and we're just going to do a little shortcut here. So based off our bullet's X direction, we're going to do a logic thingy here. So if our bullet direction is less than 0, which basically means our bullet's traveling negative, so it means it's going left. So we're going to do flip X. If it's true, it'll go right. If it's false, it'll go left. Then we're going to do the velocity of our bullet. So our velocity is going to be the bullet's direction times the bullet speed. So whatever direction is going to be multiplied by the speed, and that's going to be the velocity of the bullet. So we're going to default our bullet to 5. So it's going to go 5 on the velocity. And then we're going to initialize our destroy time to whatever the value of destroy delay is. So that's our shoot function. Next, we're going to use on trigger enter 2D. We'll rename it other. So when our bullet collides with another box collider, this event's going to fire. So for right now, we're going to destroy the bullet when it touches something. We're going to elaborate on this later. So we're going to destroy the bullet. So the bullet's just going to disappear. So let's save that. Then we're going to come back up into our updates. So now you're going to see where destroy time comes into play. So destroy time is just going to run on every frame update. We're going to subtract delta time from destroy time. And if destroy time happens to end up being less than 0, then we're going to destroy the bullet. So we have two ways of destroying the bullet. The bullet collides with something, or time runs out on the bullet. So it doesn't collide with anything, goes outside of camera view, then it just destroys itself. We don't want it to infinitely keep traveling. So then we're going to save that. I'm going to come back over to here. And then on our bullet, we're going to zero it out and save. And then, can't remember in the first video if I end up creating a prefabs folder, but if I did, it has somehow now disappeared. So you're going to create a prefabs folder. So go to the root of assets, right click, and create a new folder, and you're going to call it prefabs. And then inside the prefabs folder, and double click there, and we're going to drag our bullet and we're going to create a prefab of it. And basically, creating a prefab of the bullet is saving a copy of it, and we're going to be able to make more copies of this. So think of it as a template. It's a template of our bullet. So now that we have it as a prefab, we can remove it from the scene. Okay, so now we have a bullet, but our Mega Man cannot shoot that bullet yet. So we're going to go to our scripts, and we're going to open up our player controller. And we're going to add to this. And I just realized before we should do this, we need to actually go and set the default values on our bullet. So go back over to the prefabs, double click on your bullet, and over here on the right, scroll down, and you're going to see now that we have that public and serialized fields showing up now. So we're going to leave the damage as 1. We're going to default 1 unit of health on our bullets that we shoot. Is always going to have 1 unit of damage that it can take. And we said we're going to make our bullet speed 5. We're going to default our bullet to travel in the right, so that's a positive 1 on the X. Don't worry, we're not going to do anything with the Y because our bullets aren't going to go diagonal or anything like that. Maybe not now, maybe later. And then our destroy delay, we're going to make as 2. So it's going to sit for 2 seconds before, which is enough time for it to travel outside the scene, especially traveling at 5. So when it gets outside the scene, if it doesn't collide with anything, and our 2 seconds have counted down and they're gone, it's going to destroy the bullet. So now we're going to save that. So we've updated our prefab, and we're going to go back and we can save this. So then we're going to go back over to the code. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to create some more variables. But before we do that, we're going to kind of group these things together. So I'm going to move all these down to there, and we're going to create 4 new variables. So the first one is going to be an integer, and we're going to call it bullet damage, and we're going to initialize it to 1. The next one is going to be a float, which is our bullet speed, and we're going to initialize that to 5. We can change these in the inspector because we're making them serialized. So you can make it whatever you want. The next one is going to be a transform, and that is going to be for our bullet shoot position. And then the last one is going to be a game object, which is actually our bullet prefab. So this is going to be kind of like a copy of our bullet, and this is what we're going to be able to create our bullets from. So let's save that. And we're going to clean a couple things up. So I want to separate a couple of these things out. So we're going to create a new function called player jump input. I'm going to come down here into the direction. Below that, we're going to say void player jump input. We're going to get our jump, move that into there. Actually, then we're going to get our shoot. We're going to put that down in here. You may move all this stuff back into a single function, but right now I just want to separate out the direction input from the jump input from the shoot input. So with that done, now we're going to get to the actual shooting part. So in the last video, we just had a debug statement here, so that whenever you press the shoot, it would echo this to the debug log and say shoot bullet, shoot bullet, shoot bullet, shoot bullet. Well, now we're going to actually create the shooting of the bullet. And to do that, we're going to come down here, and after flip, we're going to create a new function, and we're going to call it shoot bullet. All right, so now we're going to shoot our bullet. So to be able to shoot our bullet, we need to have a bullet. So we're going to create a game object called bullet, and we're going to instantiate a copy of our prefab. So to do that, our first parameter is going to be what you want to instantiate, which is going to be our bullet prefab. And then it's going to want to know where to do it. So that's going to be the position of our transform, which is our bullet shoot position, which is basically that every animation had that little gizmo and that point on the barrel. So that's where we want it to spawn from. And then no rotation. Okay. When you instantiate, what it will do is it creates a copy of the prefab, and it's going to put the word clone, and that's annoying to me. So to remove that, we're just going to rename it to the original name, which is just bullet. Now we're going to actually get into our bullet script stuff. So with bullet, we're going to get component bullet script. First thing we want to do is set the damage value. And the damage value is what we had defined up in the top of our player script, which is bullet damage. So we can override the default bullet value with what we have in our player. Next one, we're going to get component of the bullet script again. Basically, we're doing this 4 times. The next one we're going to do is set the speed. So we're going to set the bullet speed to the speed that we defined at the top of the player script. Next, we're going to set the direction of the bullet. Now the direction is based on which way Mega Man is facing. So let's fill this in. So this is going to be based on our is facing Boolean. So if he is facing right, we want the bullet to travel right. If he's facing left, we want it to travel left. So when he's facing right, we're going to use vector2 dot right. So we're going to tell the bullet to go right. If he's facing left, then we're going to tell the bullet to go left. So depending on this Boolean here, it's either going to go right or it's going to go left. And the last one is to actually shoot the bullet. Ooh, we finally got there. So now we're going to call the shoot function. Bam. So that is our shoot function. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to go up into our player shoot input here, and where we have that debug statement, we're going to replace that with our shoot function. All right, let's go back over to Unity and go to the player. We have some things we need to set up real quick. So scroll all the way down here, So now you see we have some new fields that we can play with. The damage, we're going to leave it 1. The speed, we want it to be 5. But the position, well, the position is going to be based on our child over here and its position. So we're going to drag that in there, and that's going to use the transform. So, and then the copy of our prefab. So basically a pointer to our prefab. So we're going to take our bullet here in the prefabs folder and drag that there. So our bullet's going to have 1 damage. It's going to travel 5 units, and this is the position of where it's going to fire from, and this is what's going to be fired. So let's save that and try it out. Let's shrink this actually. Play. Okay. So C key was to fire. Shoot. Oh. Seems we have a problem. Well, let's go figure that out. So it turns out it's behaving exactly as it should. And the thing is, though, it is colliding with us, so that's why it's disappearing real quick. So for right now, let's just comment this out and save that. So then if we go back over to here and we shoot, there goes our bullet. It's firing. And you can also see it's disappearing because it's lasting for only those 2 seconds. Fire, 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 shoot a bunch of bullets. And then they all start disappearing, start destroying themselves after 2 seconds. But you're going to notice here, if we actually bring this in, when we fire, it's firing from down here. Well, why is that? Well, the problem is our animation is not as fast as our bullet firing. So it's not catching up to that. So what we're going to do next is we need to, oh yeah, we comment this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to delay the bullet firing. And to do that, we're going to use our coroutines. We could use a coroutine, or we're just going to keep it simple in this case. And we're just going to use invoke. So we're going to say invoke. And because we have no parameters, it's simple. But if we did, then we would have to use a coroutine. And we're going to delay this 1/10 of a second. So let's save that. Go back over. We have to restart this, but let's see. There it is. So the animation is able to get there first before the bullet leaves, before the bullet gets spawned. So if we keep rapid fire, you see they're all coming from this origin here. Zoom out. If we jump, let's jump, fire. And you can see our jump fire works as well. And if we run fire, run and shoot, it works as well. So there, now we have bullets. So with these bullets, they need to collide with things. And what we're going to collide with are enemies. So we're going to create a very basic enemy that does absolutely nothing but stand there. But before we do that, I want to build out the health. Now, actually, you know what? Let's just do the enemy first, and then we'll go to the health bar. So what we're going to do is let's get this out of the way first. We need to import another graphic. So let's stop this. Go to the graphics folder. We shrink up our bullet. We don't need that. And we're going to right click, import another asset, and we're going to import our enemies. There's a big sprite sheet filled with enemies. We're going to import this, give it a sec. Okay. We're going to change it to multiple, no filter. compression, and apply it. Okay, so then we're going to go to the editor and Peppy the robot penguin. So we're going to just take one of his images, go down one, over one, and then we're just going to call it, let's call it Peppy. And we're going to leave his pivot in the middle. So apply that, close that. So now we have Peppy. Bring the scene back over. We're going to drag Peppy in there, create a little object of him. Now Peppy is going to sit on the same layer order as Mega Man, so that's on 10. And with all enemies, we created this in the first video, I believe. Yeah, it was the first video. So we're going to set him on the enemy layer, and we're going to tag him as an enemy. So let's save that. Bring him over here, and we're going to flip him so he faces left. Save it again. Okay, now Peppy needs a couple things. He needs a box collider. And he also needs a rigid body. Peppy is going to be kinematic for right now. And he's always going to need collision, and he never sleeps. So continuous checks for collision, and he never sleeps. So let's play this real quick. You'll notice that I can run into Peppy. If I jump and I land on top of Peppy, he's not aground. So he is not aground, so I'm never going to show that I'm going grounded again. Stop that. So now what we're going to do with our layers is we're going to make the players layer and the enemy layers ignore each other on collisions. So you'll notice, like in Mega Man, like Kamadoma, Big Eye, you can't jump on top of Big Eye and stand on top of Big Eye, or any of them. So they collide, but it's triggers. So when you go into, let me do that again, edit, project settings, and under physics 2D, if you come down here, you have a collision matrix of all the layers that can collide with each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the player and an enemy, and the player and the player, if we had a second player, and enemies and enemies. So none of these layers are going to be able to collide with each other and push each other around. So now if we play it, so now Mega Man and Peppy, they don't collide. We're going to add in another type of collision detection with triggers. So that's how we're going to know if we touch them or not. We don't want to basically have them as solid objects with each other. The trigger is going to detect if there's a collision, and then we're going to react to that trigger being triggered. So we'll save that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create another script, and we're going to call it EnemyController. This is going to be the foundation for later when we create our actual enemies. Each of our enemies is going to have two scripts. It's going to have an enemy controller and a controller for the enemy itself. The enemy controller is going to have all the common information, the common logic, like checking for the collision detection, the damage values, things like that. Where the other script, so for instance, we'll have like a Peppy controller, and inside that it's going to contain how he moves on the screen, things like that. So, or Big Eye, how he jumps around on the screen. So let's open up the EnemyController. But before we go, let's go back over to the bullet, and we're going to modify this. We're going to take this out, and we're going to make a change because we want it to collide and we want it to hit enemies. So we're going to do that before we start working on the EnemyController. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to check for other, which is what we collided with, this other variable here, game object, and we're going to check the tag. Now the tag, if you look at Peppy here, we set the tag here. So the tag we're looking for is enemy. So we're going to compare it and check and see if it's actually enemy. And if it is enemy, then we are going to react to destroying the bullet disappearing off the screen. So if it collides with ladders, if it collides with platforms, it's going to ignore all those. It's just going to pass by them. But if it collides with anything with a tag of enemy, it's going to destroy itself. So we're going to save that. Go back over here and try it out. So it shouldn't just disappear now if it's on us. So if I shoot, you see the bullets disappearing. As soon as it touches Peppy, it disappears. The thing about this is, it's basically kind of, it's very fast, but it's not making it. And so what we're going to do to fix that, we're going to put a delay on this. So we're going to do 1/100 of a second. At least I think that's 1/100 of a second, which I believe is enough for it to make it a little bit further so it's closer to the sprite before it destroys. So now if we run it and we shoot, now it's a little bit closer. Zoom out, gets closer to the enemy. So we add that little delay on there on the destroy. So it doesn't destroy it immediately, it destroys it after this time has passed. So it's kind of like invoke, except on destroy. So we'll save that. Now we're going to work on the EnemyController. Let's go over to that. We're going to create some variables. First one's going to be a bool. It's going to be is invincible. So we're going to allow, Mega Man's going to have this too, but it's going to be where we can have invincibility. There are certain characters like Mambu, and Met, where they don't take damage. So this is going to be our flag, whether we can take damage or not on an enemy, and also on Mega Man. Then we're going to have public int current health, and then another public int max health, and we're going to default it to 1 because a lot of these enemies, they only have like a health unit of 1, so it takes 1 bullet to kill them, so we're just going to default to that. And another int, which we're going to call contact damage. So this is when it's also going to be 1, the default. So whenever Mega Man touches one of these enemies, that's the contact damage, versus if it's a projectile, like some of them, they fire bullets too. And those would be bullet projectile damages. So there are different types of damages that can be inflicted and different values. So in the start, we're going to set our current health equal to max health. And let's come down here. What we're going to do is we're going to create a public function. It's going to be called take damage. And we're going to pass it how much damage this enemy is going to take. And inside here, we only want to take damage if we're not invincible, if the enemy is not invincible. So we're going to remove set damage from their current health. We're going to lock it to a certain range, so the current health should never go below 0 and it should never go above the maximum health. And then if the current health, it should never go below 0, but I wrote this a long time ago, so I'm going to use less than or equal to. So it should never go below 0, but it will equal to 0. And then we're going to call a function that will create, it's going to be called defeat. So if the enemy falls below health of 0 or equal to 0, we're going to call our defeat function. And our defeat function is very, very simple for right now. We're going to beef it up later with actually an animation that the enemy explodes. We're not going to have that in this video. That'll be in the next one. So we're going to destroy the game object. So the enemy will die. It'll remove itself from the scene of the game once it dies, once it runs out of health. And then we need to track when Mega Man runs into these enemies and touches them. So you notice, let's go back over to the bullet. And the bullet I used enter, which basically means it fires as soon as the trigger enter, like basically happens the first time, we call this. What we're using here is on trigger stay. So this gets called for as long as the boxes overlap or touch each other. So for instance, if Mega Man happens to hit the enemy and he bounces back, but the enemy is still near him, and as soon as he's done with his hit animation, if he's still in here, it's not going to fire again if it's on enter. So that's why we need to use on trigger stay. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to test, like we did with the bullet checking for an enemy. We're going to say if the tag is player, in which if we look over on our player, we have a player tag. So our player is tagged as player. So in here, we're just going to use a little debug real quick. And we're going to say player hit for right now. Okay, so now Peppy needs the enemy script. So we're going to drag the enemy controller onto Pepe. Boom. And so his max health is going to be 1, his contact damage is going to be 1. So now we're going to try this out. Let's try, actually, let's do the shoot. If I shoot, he's not disappearing like he should. Let's check that out. Well, duh. Right, because I haven't even coded that part yet. So if we go back to our bullet script, we were checking to see if the bullet collided with an enemy. Well, obviously, we're not taking any damage away from him, so why would he disappear? So what we're going to do is on this other, we're going to create an object of our enemy controller. So we're going to check and see if enemy isn't null. Now all of our enemies should have this enemy controller script on it, but for some reason one of them is forgotten to be placed on it. This is going to come back as null because there's no component of that script on that enemy or that thing that's tagged as enemy, so this shouldn't happen. So it should never be null, but we're going to throw that in there just in case. So now what we're going to do is on our enemy, we're going to call that take damage function, and we're going to apply the damage that's the value of our bullet. So by default it's 1, but Mega Man can override it, but we don't because we have it as 1 also. So his bullet damage is 1, but we can change that, but we're not going to because it really is 1. So let's save that and shoot. Oh, look at that. Pepe just disappeared. He got killed. So let's play it again. Go to Pepe. Let's change his max health to maybe like 5. And if I shoot 1, it's because it ran beforehand. Anyway, that's okay. We'll do it before and shoot. Shoot 2, 3, 4, 5. He's dead. So max health is working. Tracking his damage and how much health he has works as well. So we can save that. So back over to our enemy. Let's throw in the invincibility function real quick. So actually in here we don't need this update. So we're going to create this as a public void invincible. We're going to pass whether they're I hate this word, invincibility. So is invincible is going to be equal to the value of invincibility. So there, let's do that. Okay, so now we're going to go modify Mega Man, his script. We need to add some stuff in, so we're going to give him the ability to be invincible, taking damage, etc. So up here under is shooting, we're going to add another ghoul. We're going to call it is taking damage. And then we're going to add in a ghoul is invincible. Then we're going to create another one, hit side right, which basically this is going to be a flag if Mega Man's hit on his right side or his left side, and that's going to determine which push direction his hit animation happens. So you'll see that in a minute. So we're also going to put in health. So we're going to give him a current health and a max health. Mega Man's max health is going to be 28 because his health bar actually has 28 units. And then we're going to come down here into start and initialize his current health equal to the max health. Save. Let's go all the way to the bottom. We have a bunch of functions that we need to write now. First one's going to be the hit side. So what we're going to do is we're going to set hit side right equal to the value of hit side. No, not hit side, right side. So if you sit on the right, it'll be true. If you sit on the left, hit side right will be false. And then we're going to do invincibility. But you know what? I'm tired of having to type these out. Let's copy that. It's the same exact thing. Let's just drop that in there. Make life easy. And then next, same with the damage. However, we're going to make some changes to this. But if not invincible, we're still going to remove damage from the health. We're still going to clamp it. And then if health is equal to 0, it's going to do another Mega Man's defeat. Else, we still have some life. We're going to call a function that we haven't created yet, just like defeat hasn't been created yet. We're going to call this start damage animation. Inside start damage animation, start down here. So let's see. Say void start damage animation. Oops. So if we're not already taking damage, we want to say that we are taking damage. During the time that we're taking damage, we want to be invincible. We don't want it where we get repeatedly hit while we're showing our damage animation, and all of a sudden we're dead. So we're going to make ourselves invincible during that period of while we're showing our damage animation. So we're going to say that's true. Then we're going to create a couple floats here. Our first float we're going to call hit force x, and we're going to put that at 0.5. These are values that I've come up with after having toyed around with the animation, so you can try different values if you'd like, but these come out to be pretty cool. And then we're going to do a hit force y. We're going to do that at 1.5. So this is the x force that he gets pushed horizontally, and then this is the y force, because when you'll notice that when the animation plays, he kind of bounces up a little, and then he goes left or right. So that's the y and the x. So now we're going to change the direction of the force x depending on which side we're hit on. So that's where hit side right comes in. So if hit side right, so if that's true, then our hit force x, so if we're hit on the right side, we want to basically go left, which is basically negative. If we're hit on the left, then we want to go positive right. So hit force x will become negative hit force x. Now we're going to use our rigid body. We're going to zero out the velocity. So we're going to use vector 2, 0. And then we're going to apply force to Mega Man. So with the force, we're going to do the x force, the y force, and then it's going to be force mode of impulse. So let's save that. Next, we're going to create a function here called stop damage animation. So this is actually going to be called inside of our animation, right at the end of it. So this is going to basically say, hey, we've hit the end of the animation. You can stop doing it. Stop taking damage. So we're done taking damage. Go back to normal. So then in this case, we're going to say is taking damage is going to be false. We are no longer invincible. And this is going to come later. You know what? I'll save it for after we're done building the animation. So let's save that. Last is our defeat function. And inside of our defeat function, exactly like our enemies, we're going to destroy the game object, which is basically destroying Mega Man to remove him off the screen. And the next video is going to be where we're going to add in the explosion animations and make it cool. Right now he's just going to vanish. Real boring, but it's going to be a really long video already. So let's save that. We're going to come back over to this and let's play it. So now if I go over here and I'm going to run into Peppy, you're going to see, oh no, where's my hit? I'm not getting hit. Well, to be able to get hit right now, we disable the collisions on these layers so they don't touch each other. So what we have to do with Peppy and what we'll do with all of our enemies is they're all going to have game objects that are children that are going to be called hitboxes. So these are basically, in this case, box colliders. What just happened? These are box colliders, but they are triggers. Before we do that, let's go copy the current box collider settings and put it on there so we don't have to fiddle with his width and height of the box, because it's the same as his collision box or his volume box. So it's the same, and then we're going to say he's a trigger. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a rigid body. Should I take that back? The rigid body on Peppy himself is going to cause the collision. So the hitbox is not going to have that. So actually remove that if you've already added it. All we want is the box collider. So save. Let's check to make sure. So right now, player hit. So if collision, we're going to basically do this debug statement of player hit. So let's run it and see what happens. We go to our console here. If we touch, still not doing it. Oh yeah. The hitbox adapted, it took in the layer from its parent. We cannot have the hitbox on the enemy layer. So we're going to change that to default. So it's not, because otherwise it's just going to ignore it. Now you can see over here our player hit log message. So we can hit. So every time we touch Peppy, we're touching, we're hitting. This is our collision. So we can stop that. What we're going to do now is we're going to elaborate on this. And before we do that, come over to our player here. And this is what we were going to do before. So animator dot play. We're going to play the player hit animation. However, what this is actually going to do is reset it. And because it doesn't loop, it kind of gets stuck. Now I was scratching my head when I first started working on this Mega Man thing a while ago. I was scratching my head. I was like, as soon as I got hit, if I happen to stay within that, it just got stuck into that animation. Well, it turns out you have to tell it to reset, otherwise it gets stuck. So this is how you reset the animation when it doesn't have loop on. So check that out. You don't really specify a layer and you don't really specify a time. You're just calling it again. And then we're going to go up to the top in the update function. Check if we're taking damage. If we're taking damage, we're going to play the hit animation. So while we're being hit, we're going to exit out of the update. So while we're taking damage, it's going to just keep playing the hit animation, and then when it's done taking damage, this go back to false, and then we'll get input and all this other stuff. So let's try that. So if we come over here, player hit. We have to go over to the enemy. So we're going to take this out. We don't need that anymore because now what we're going to do is we're going to get our player. Notice we're jumping around a lot in these scripts. I wish there was a linear way of doing all this, but there really isn't. So now, once we have a handle to the player, we're going to call that hit side function. Hit side is going to be determined by the enemy's X position. If it's greater than the player's X position, then that must mean that the player is on the right side of the enemy. If the player's X is less than this, then it'll be on the left side. So this is how it's going to determine which side the player is hit on. And then we're going to do like we did with the enemy. We're going to take some damage, but we're going to be taking the contact damage. So this is when they touch. So let's save that. Come back over to here. Run it again. Let's go. Oh. Well, look at that. We're stuck. But it switched animations, and you saw the force, where we're using add force. So he kind of jumps up a little and goes backward. So boom. See that? So that's when we get hit. So let's try it on the other side. So if we jump over, up, I must have been on the right side. All right, cool. Operating as expected. Now, here comes the real fun part. Now we get to build out the hit animation. Ooh. So let's get this out of the way real quick. We're going to come over to our graphics folder. We need another image to import. And this is the hit bubble. So we're going to import another asset, and it's called hit bubble. So import that. The hit bubble is like the little cloud that happens first, and then it jumps to his pose of being hit. So with this, we're going to go to the editor. Before we go to the editor, there's no filter, no compression, apply that, go to the editor. And with this, we want to change the pivot because all of our pivots on Mega Man are down at the bottom where his feet are. So we're going to do the same with this. We have to because otherwise it doesn't line up right. So bottom center that, apply it, and that's all you need to do with this. So the pivot's going to be at the bottom center, just like it is with all the Mega Man poses. And then we're going to go back to our player and we're going to go to our hit animation, and this is what we have right now. Well, we're going to copy this because what we're going to do first though is we're going to do 12 frames a second on his hit animation. And our hit animation is going to basically extend out to about here. So we're going to copy this guy. We're going to paste it in all these slots here. And you're going to see why we're doing this. So instead of it being one continuous, we're going to drop these in. So we have all the same pose. However, the first 4 we're going to do as the bubble. So you can drag that on there, drag it on top of there, drag it on top of there, and drag it on top of there. Okay. Now, when he gets hit, he has the flash. He starts flashing. So now we're going to imitate that flashing effect. And what we're going to do that, we need to add our sprite renderer, and what we're going to do is use the enabled method. So that's turning it on and off, basically. We're going to turn it on and off throughout the animation. So let's add that in. We're going to start back at the beginning, and we're going to have to toggle it throughout these. That's why we have all these multiples. So we're going to start the record. We're going to go to the first one. So the first one, we want it to visible. The second one, we're going to turn it off. The third one, we want it on, etc., and so forth. So you're basically going to be flipping it on, off, on, off, on, off. So that one should be on. This one should be off. Should be on. Should be off. Should be on. Should be off. Should be on. Off. And then from this point on, it's going to be on, and actually, you know, is it 1, 2? Yeah, so from there. So then we can stop. If we go back, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, etc., etc. So that's our animation. So if we bring this back over, where did our player go? Oh, because we're off. There he is. So if we step through this, flash, off, on, boom, boom, boom. That's our hit. We're getting hit. We're getting hit. We're still hit. And they're at the end. So when we get to this point right here, we want to call like the last 2 frames. Actually, let's see here. Off, on, 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 on. Actually, hold on a second here. Can't remember how many I did. Yeah, I think this is actually off. I'm going to go to record again. This is supposed to be off, and then it's on, I believe. Anyway. And then there. So here's off, here's on, and then there's on. Okay. So on, off, on, on. we get to this point here, we want to add an event. So what we're going to do at this point in the animation, we're going to trigger the stop damage animation function, which, as you remember, when we go back to our player, and we come back all the way down here, it's going to say we're not taking damage anymore, we're no longer invincible, and it's going to reset this animation thing. So it should say, oh, okay, and then because we're not pressing any keys or anything, it should go back to idle, or if we are pressing keys, it'll be run left or run right. Now we're going to see this in practice. So let's see. This should be pretty cool now. So if we go to our player, let's just zoom in here. Let's see it. Let's see it before we play it. Let's go to hit, play it. There it is. So let's play. Okay, so now if we're going to come in here, boom, that's our hit animation. Yeah. And if I jump on the other side, I jump that way, that's our hit. And if we're still on the player, which we should be, you'll notice our health is decreasing. So we have decreasing health. I'm going to go bump into him again. See, now it's at 20, 19, 18. We're going to test this out. We were going to say, let's change Peppy to, let's say his contact damage is 5, like we were talking about in the beginning. So then if we go back to Mega Man, now it's at 13, 8, and then once we hit him again, it should go below 0, should go to 0, and we go poof, we died. Cool. All right, kind of been bouncing around. Now, last but not least, we need to see our health. So now we're going to create the health bar. So let's get this out of the way. We're going to import the last asset or the last graphic for this video, and it's going to be the health bar, which is this. I'm going to import that. Okay, so this isn't Sprite. Actually, it is. We're going to, this is multiple. Apply that, go to the editor. Okay, so this has all the different bars and placement on screen, which we don't need to really worry about. But what we want is the empty bar and the player life. So we're going to start with this. We're going to get a copy of that. We're going to call it player health bar empty. And the pivot, we say is the bottom center. Apply that. Then we're going to get the full life. We're going to take that, and that's going to be player health bar full. And that's also going to be down there in the center. Apply that. So those are our two health bars, where we have no health and full health. And you're going to see how we use this. First thing we're going to do is we need to create a canvas. Now the canvas sits on top of your scene. So it's like a HUD. It's the heads-up display, and it'll have like life bars, buttons if you have like on-screen joysticks, things like that. So we're going to go to we're going to right click over here and we're going to go to UI and we're going to add in a canvas. And we're going to remove the event system. Event systems if your canvas has like mouse clicks and things like that. We don't need that for this. We're going to add it back in possibly later if we do like developing for mobile or mouse click and things like that. But we're going to get rid of it for now. Go to your canvas and then you're going to change the UI scale mode to scale with screen size. So the health bar scales with the size of the screen instead of being constant pixel size. It doesn't look right. So from here, bring this back over. You'll see now we have this big rectangle. This is actually the canvas that'll sit on top of our scene. So with this, we're going to right click on the canvas, we're going to go to UI and we're going to create an image. And this image, we're going to call it player health bar. So with the player health bar, let's expand this. We have our full and empty, and the sprite is going to be the empty. So that's going to be there. And then what we're going to do is we need to change its position and such. So that's where the rect transform up here comes into play. So we're going to hold down Alt and we're going to click this top left here. So it puts the anchor point in the top left of the screen. So regardless of the screen size, it'll always consider the anchor. That's like where it calculates positioning. Now the size of our health bar, if we look, it's 8 by 56, but we're going to double up on that. So it's going to be 16 by 112. So that's our health bar right there. Then we're going to change the position. 50 is good on the in, and 156 good also. However, this isn't right because it's calculating it based off the pivot, and the pivot happens to be in the center. So we're going to change the pivot on this. We want it in the bottom. So now we're going to change our position Y one more time to there. So now, if we look, I can't really tell. This is where the health bar is going to sit on the screen. So up in this top left of the screen. And what just happened there? Oh, there we go. It's weird. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add the mask. So off of the player health bar, we're going to go to UI, and we're going to add another image. And this image we're going to call mask. The mask is going to be the entire size of the health bar. And the pivot on this is going to be down here in the center. So, oh yeah, in case you don't see the pivot, you're going to want to switch it to the rect tool up here so you can basically move it around. And it should keep itself in the center. When you see that blue line, and just drag it down so it's at the very bottom here. And from here, we're going to add the mask itself. And you're going to take off the show mask graphic so it's transparent. So now we're seeing the empty health bar here. Last, we're going to right click, add a third image. Now this image we're going to call health bar. And in health bar, we're going to drag our full health as the image. There. So now it's sitting on top of the empty health bar. And with this, we're also going to max it out. However, we want our anchor in the top left and our pivot Come on, pivot. Down to the bottom. So there. So that's our health bar. And what you're going to see is this mask. We're going to move the mask. See that? So as our health decreases, we're going to be moving the offset of the position of this, so it's going to expose the empty health. And so the mask is basically keeping the health bar inside. So we go down, 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 up, now we're empty. And then back up. So that's how we're creating the health bar. So now we're going to save this. And now that we have this health bar, we need to create another script. And we're just going crazy with scripts today. 3 scripts. So create another script. I'm going to call it UI health bar. And open that up. So the first thing we want to do is, because we're using the Unity user interface, we need to add a reference to it. So Unity Engine Health UI. Now inside here, we're going to create 2 variables. First one is a public image mask. So we need to basically get a handle on the mask that we're going to be adjusting the size of, or position. And then a float of the original size of it. So we know how to calculate off of it. And then we're going to change the start to awake. Why? Because we only want one instance of this health bar. So we're going to basically make it a singleton. And let's see here. Let's say get and private set. So there, instance. So inside of our awake function, we're going to set the instance equal to this instance. And we don't need an update. No, we don't even really need this either. It's not start. Actually, we did need start. Oh well. So inside of start, we're going to get the original size of the mask's rect transform. So the original size is equal to the mask's rect transform height. So we need to save the original height. And then we're going to create a public function called setValue. And inside of here, we're going to call set size with current anchors. The axis is going to be vertical. And we're going to take the original size and multiply it by the value. So this is going to calculate how much of the mask is going to be exposed. So you're like, oh, okay, so how are we going to use this? Well, we're going to go over to our player here, back to our player script, and inside of our take damage, we're going to come underneath it here. We're going to use our UI health bar, its instance, and set a, let's set a message, let's set a value. There. 'There. 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 divided by our max health to basically give you a percentage of how much is still left. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over here. We're going to try it out. Let's go here, zoom in. Actually, it's probably more if you see it over on this side. So let's run it. So bring this down. So there's our health bar. We're going to bump into Peppy. Uh-oh, got an error. What's this error? UI health bar instance, what? Object reference sent to blah blah. Oh, right. So once again, I forgot. So you're going to go over to your player health bar here. We need to add the script onto this main one. So we're going to add the health bar onto our player health bar, and then we need to add the mask. So we reference the mask there. So now if we run it, come over here. Oh, I'm going to touch Peppy. See the bar? It's decreasing. So now we have a health bar. Jump over Peppy. Jump over. And to get this the way that it looked at the beginning, we're going to clone Peppy. So we're going to make some copies of him. Bring the canvas underneath of all those. We're going to take Peppy. I'm going to move him out here. Get rid of that one. Move those guys out. Get rid of that one. Move them out. And last but not least, move the last guy out. There. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, let's drag this up, make it a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on. Alright, so I'm going to jump. Let's see. Ooh. Get over these guys. Let's kill that guy. Jump over him. Jump over that one. There we go. We're taking damage. Our health bar is reflecting it. We move this down real quick. Let's change of all of our Peppies. Contact damage of 5. Bounce, bounce, bounce in between them. And then Mega Man is dead. End of the game. And it would restart once you have a game manager. That'll be one of the other videos. Okay, we reached the end. I believe that covers everything. So we have all of our scripts. We have the base for our enemy controller in the future. We have our bullet script. We have the changes to our player controller. So we've added hit side, the invincibility factor, take damage. We start the damage animation, stop it, or defeat. We're going to add in explosions in the next video. And our health bar. So that is the end of the video. So I hope you learned from it. So in the next video, we're going to be doing the explosions. So when Peppy or any other enemy explodes, they're going to explode. It's going to show an explosion animation after they disappear from the screen, or when they disappear from the screen. And in Mega Man's case, we're going to create his explosion animation, which is actually several, I can't remember, I think it's 12. I believe it's 12 game objects that all have different vectors and they all go in different directions and they all have an explosion animation on each of them. So it's a pretty cool effect. So that'll be a lot of fun to make in the next video. So if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. All this code and everything is going to be on my GitHub. Link will be in the description. And we'll see you in the next video. Ciao.